Joining us right now is Republican Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas. Senator, it's great to have you here. It's been a minute. I really appreciate your time. Let's start with where John just left off. Clearly, Donald Trump is a presumptive nominee. We're not talking about that, of course. But the fact that Haley's polled in double-digit vote shares, 15-20% in some places, in 15 states since she dropped out, what do you think Republican voters are saying with that?
Kate, I don't think there's much we can take from that. President Trump has been the presumptive nominee for months now. He's not campaigning in these states. I think the bigger issue is if you look at polling for the general election, that Joe Biden is hemorrhaging support among traditional Democratic constituencies like Latino voters, black voters, and young voters. That's one reason why Donald Trump has such a large lead, in addition to Joe Biden's failed and weak presidency. That's why you're going to see a big Donald Trump and Republican victory in November.
Let's talk about something that's happening. It relates to the election. It's an issue in the election, and it's something that's happening now, and you're involved in. The House is going to be voting this week, and you've introduced a companion bill in the Senate on a measure that seeks to end Biden's flexibility, if you will, on delivering weapons to Israel. The White House issued a veto threat, but congressional sources tell us that the White House, at the same time, is moving forward with a $1 billion arms package for Israel, which would include tactical vehicles, tank ammunition, and more. Do you want to be seen as setting a precedent of tying any president's hands when it comes to the foreign policy of the United States?
No, Kate, the precedent that we shouldn't set is Joe Biden imposing a de facto arms embargo on Israel. He's denying them the munitions that they need in the middle of a war of survival against Hamas, which committed the worst atrocity against Jews since World War II. And the announcement that President Biden made this week that he's going to deliver $1 billion of arms is just a smokescreen for that de facto arms embargo, because those weapons and those munitions won't arrive for months or even years. It's all designed to give cover to Democrats who recognize that Joe Biden is catering to the small pro-Hamas wing in his party against the large pro-Israel majority of the American people. In contrast, Donald Trump has said he would back Israel to the hilt, which is what we should be doing, so Israel can win this war more quickly and destroy Hamas. That's what we should have been doing all along, but President Biden has tied himself in pretzels for the last 7 months, once again displaying weakness because he is worried about this small but outsized vocal pro-Hamas minority in his own party.
I've heard you say de facto arms embargo in recent days as well, but it's not a de facto arms embargo. It's not that in reality. They sent $26 billion over in that foreign aid package. It's not a full arms embargo like on, I don't know, Somalia and Sudan. You don't think that Israel could pull off its operation in Rafah, how they plan it, what they want to do, when they want to do it, without getting more right now from the United States?
Well, Kate, first off, the security package that we just passed hasn't really started flowing into Israel yet. What President Biden has done, we now know going back to last year, is to deny Israel the very kinds of bombs and precision-guided systems that they need to destroy Hamas inside of Rafah. That is the last bastion of Hamas. It's where its leaders are holed up. It's even where it's presumably many of the hostages are around those leaders. The reason they need larger bombs with precision guidance systems on them is that Hamas has built this tunnel network underneath Gaza where you have to have larger bombs to get down and penetrate into it. And the fact that President Biden is denying them those bombs in the middle of this war, and he is apparently even denying them intelligence about the location of Hamas leaders, which again is to say the location of hostages, including potentially American hostages, is just another example of the weak, failed presidency that the American people have seen for 3.5 years.
You served, everyone knows this, but just for viewers' knowledge, you served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I say that because I had David Petraeus on, who led successful counterinsurgencies in Iraq. He was on with me this week, Senator, and he thinks Israel needs to go into Rafah. He said that very clearly, but his assessment is that they need to change strategy before they do. They are right now, his description is clearing and leaving, and they need to be clearing, holding, and building, which is what they did in Iraq. He makes the case that the IDF strategy is not working, and this speaks to kind of a little bit of what we've heard from the White House on this. Do you agree with David Petraeus that IDF strategy is not working right now?
Well, ultimately, General Petraeus, as he did during the surge phase of Iraq, is right that you do have to hold and build but you have to clear first. You have to destroy and get a military victory. That's what happened when General Petraeus was the commander of the 101st Airborne in March and April of 2003. You have to have a military victory before you can have a political victory. And I know that President Biden is demanding that Israel have all kinds of elaborate plans for what's going to happen after Hamas is defeated. That's not what we did against the Islamic State when Barack Obama started a war, didn't finish it. It took Donald Trump to finish it, but we focused on achieving a military victory. And until Hamas's final 4 battalions hold up inside of Rafah or destroyed, until their leaders are captured or killed, I think it's premature to demand Israel start developing all kinds of elaborate plans for the so-called day after. Military victory cannot be forsaken.
Let me ask you this. We've seen Republican lawmakers, quite a lot of them, coming to New York City to sit in on Donald Trump's trial to show their support for him. And CNN also has new reporting that House Oversight, they just pushed back the start time of a markup today so committee Republicans could attend the trial. And Mitt Romney, I want to play for you what Mitt Romney had to say about all this.
I think it's also demeaning for people to quite apparently try and run for vice president by donning the red tie and standing outside the courthouse. It's just, I'd have felt awkward.
Your name is out there as a possible running mate. I know that you said that you're not focused on that at all, but do you think it's important for anyone who wants to be VP to have to show up to this trial? I mean, do you think someone can get the job without it?
Kate, I turned in my law license 20 years ago, and I haven't seen the inside of a courtroom since then, and I don't have any plans to do so in the future. I agree with what President Trump said. It's important that we do our job as legislators in Washington, for instance, making sure that we overturn Joe Biden's de facto arms embargo and get Israel the weapons it needs. I also think this should be a moot question after today. I know everyone is excited about the cross-examination by President Trump's lawyers of Michael Cohen, a notorious convicted liar. But what's a bigger news today is that if the prosecution rests its case based on the evidence they've put forward, then this judge should redeem himself and all the erroneous rulings he's made so far by directing a verdict of not guilty against Donald Trump, because there's been no evidence of any crime whatsoever in this case. The trial should end today if the prosecution rests its case.
Do you think what Mitt Romney said is right, that it's awkward that all these people are standing like with matching outfits to show their support?
I'll let other legislators and politicians make decisions about how they want to spend their time and show their support for President Trump and for our great Republican candidates across the country. I agree with what President Trump said. We need to focus in the Congress on passing legislation that will reverse the weak, failed policies of Joe Biden.
We can also refrain from any fashion commentary as well, Senator. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for your time coming in today.